Ongoing murder of Indian democracy. Let's wake up and stop it. Booklet reading dated 21st April 2026. Part 13. Some ways in which our judiciary, the Supreme Court, could have protected our democracy but failed to protect in the present context. Coming to another aspect of this entire saga of our democracy being murdered right now. Some ways in which our judiciary, our Supreme Court, could have protected our democracy but failed to protect in the present context. 1. A PIL was filed in 2015 against the practice of union government in power selecting the election commissioners with a deep concern that it gave rise to obvious major conflict of interest. Supreme Court took 8 years to decide on that case, and in March 2023, it ordered that pending passage of a suitable law by the Parliament, a 3-member panel consisting of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and Chief Justice of India, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, shall make these elections. Given the critical importance of this issue to the integrity of our democracy and the very straightforward, readily visible major conflict of interest that any person can see right away, could the Supreme Court have decided on this case sooner? Maybe in about 6 months or less? It did not. In response to the above judgment in March 2023, the Modi BJP dominated Parliament passed an act in December 2023 to change the composition of the 3-member panel to consist of the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and a Cabinet Minister named by the Prime Minister. Thus, the Prime Minister had the final say. Soon thereafter, PILs were filed challenging this law. To any ordinary person, this would be a blatantly unjust law. In 2026, the Supreme Court is still hearing the case. About a month ago, the Supreme Court was in the process of deciding which bench should hear the case. On the latest report a few days ago said that the bench is in place and it is actually hearing the case. And in fact, there was a report about some comments that the bench made. Pending final disposal of this case, no stay has been ordered on the law in question either. Effectively, BJP continues to appoint a Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners, and these election commissioners conduct the elections. A very major conflict of interest continues. Supreme Court should have stayed this law. Supreme Court could have stayed the law in question. It can still order a stay on it, but it has not. Number 3, when ECA announced SIR, PILs were filed against it as this was seemingly contrary to some very basic and critically central concepts of democracy. While the Bihar SIR was in progress, the litigants, Sri Yogendra Yadav, etc., filed evidence of how seriously faulty the final post-SIR voters list was. ECI had no answers. Supreme Court allowed that faulty list to be used for conducting Bihar elections, while continuing to hear the case against SIR. Supreme Court did not order a stay on the SIR process in the meanwhile. The SIR case is still being heard by the Supreme Court, and it could take many more months or years before a final judgment will come. In the meanwhile, the rampage of SIR continues to murder Indian democracy. Again, the Supreme Court has failed to protect our democracy. Number 4, in West Bengal, somewhere between 27 to 35 lakh voters, 27 lakhs to 35 lakh existing voters have been deleted after adjudication, etc., against which they have filed appeals. Pending disposal of their appeals by tribunals that are being or maybe have been constituted, they have been deprived of the right to vote in the immediately. Let me read that again. In West Bengal, somewhere between 27 lakh to 35 lakh existing voters have been deleted after adjudication, etc., against which they have filed appeals. Pending disposal of their appeals, they have been deprived of their right to vote in the immediately scheduled assembly elections. By the way, like I said, when this was composed, West Bengal assembly elections had not been held. Now, while I'm speaking, now this is after the assembly elections have been held. Pending the disposal of their appeals, the 27 to 35 lakh voters have been deprived of their right to vote in the then immediately scheduled assembly elections. The assembly elections were scheduled to be held as they are being scheduled. Let me repeat that. The assembly elections are being held as scheduled in spite of such a major injustice, not merely to those who are not allowed to vote, but to the entire process of Indian democracy. Again, sorry for this little confusion while reading this because of the fact that this was composed before the assembly elections were held, and I'm reading this now after the assembly elections, West Bengal assembly elections were held. Again, the point is, the Supreme Court has failed to protect our democracy here also again by depriving those 27 lakh voters their right to vote. For complete information about this, you can freely download a 17-page PDF booklet, kannadaindians.com/SIR or democracy in danger -English or Kannada.